I'm going to start real quickly right now because I know Debra's worried she's going to go over. So we'll start right away. And I wanted to let you know, first of all, that we're going to move down to once a month during the summer, and then we'll kick back up to every other week in the fall. Donations are always welcome, and you know that you can do it by sending a note, sending a check to 108 Orange Road, Montclair, New Jersey, 07042. We take Venmo, we take credit cards on our website. So, any way, if you have it in your heart to give us a few dollars, that would be lovely. I'm going to move right now to Debra and introduce her. She is a member of our Board of Trustees and has been for a number of years now. She's a great addition because she's an architect and she's really helped us an awful lot over the years. And Debra is local. She lives right here in Montclair, and she specializes in historic preservation. So there's really not a better person we could have on our board, and we are grateful to her for all she provides to us. And she is today talking more about Scientific American and the Builders and Architects edition. This time she's digging deep into one particular architect, but I'm not going to do any more than that other than welcome Debra and invite you to share your screen.
Welcome to the third installment of Montclair Residence in Scientific American, Builders and Architects Edition, 1885 to 1905. And this is going to work for me. There we go. And just as a little bit of a background, I just wanted to real quickly go through what Scientific American Architects and Builders Edition was. It was a magazine to talk about new innovations in building supplies and methods and means. Plus, they like to have show plans and elevations of the buildings that they felt were interesting. There is a little twist to that coming up soon. It was run by Orson Munn and Alfred Beach. Alfred was I don't know whether he was a resident of Montclair, but he owned property in Montclair. The Scientific American building was originally at 361 Broadway. It was a beautiful cast iron front building that's now being turned into condos. It was the building monthly was first published in 1885, and it was renamed Scientific American Architects and Builders Edition in later in 85, I guess the next month. And then it ran with another name, Scientific American Building Edition, up until 1905, and then it became American Homes and Gardens, and then House and Garden, which was published until 2007. It was, for us, a good deal. It was only 25 cents a copy, but at that time it was $2.50 a year, 25 cents for a single copy. It was a great descriptive resource, not only showing a beautiful picture of the house that was featured, but it was also talked about what they built, how they built the building, and showed a plan. And what I find really funny is that in a lot of these drawings and pictures, the tree's in the way of showing the whole thing. I mean, if it's a painting, just don't put the tree in. And that was a hard thing for me to get good pictures of the buildings because there's so many trees in Montclair right now. They also presented new innovations and specifications. They, up until, even though there was electricity, a lot of people didn't switch over until the 1920s. And there was gas, they show a lot of different gas lamp features, and other building materials. Now, I put this other one up, the brick company, because in one of the houses they talk about Pompeian brick, and I cannot find any reference to what that was. I'm wondering if it's Roman brick, but that's something that I still have to research. And if anybody knows what it is, please put it in the comment section, and I'll say thank you. Now, why Montclair? Once that we got our 6 train stations, people knew that they could move out to Montclair and still work in the city or in any of the cities in between. So it became not only a place that people would just come for their vacation house, but it was actually a place that people would come and actually raise their families. And this is where these are 2 properties that Alfred Beach owned on Prospect Terrace, and I don't know what that other street is. It's blocked off. There's also another estate showing there, and I believe there's another one that I saw last night in Upper Montclair, and I'll keep trying to run that down. Scientific American was originally started as a patent office, and they would publish different innovations and patents or patents that were up and coming. Now, another Montclair connection, in the Montclair Times, I found a advert for the patents, but then also we see that Mr. Hink, who everybody's heard of, he was representing the architectural department of Scientific American. So you could call Mr. Hink up and he would try to, match you up with plans or an architect who worked at Scientific American. The Montclair building boom was really evident in the 90s, the 1890s, and an article in the Montclair Times. They seem to also, in the Montclair Times, publish building and architectural things in the Saturday edition. I don't know whether it was because then more people were going to read it, but it there were many articles about buildings in the Saturday edition, and it said that seldom in history of Montclair has there been so much activity in the building improvements as it is at the present time. New houses are going up in nearly every parts of town for some speculative purposes and investment, but great preponderances are the prospective dwellings of their owners. In most cases, too, the houses are of better grade than has been the rule for many years past. Many will cost $10,000. Some will be as high as $15,000 and $2,000. And one will represent an outlay of not less than $50,000. And there was obviously so much going on that they felt that they wanted to they wanted to reach out to people and let them know what was going on. I've given a talk several times on Scientific American, but this time it hit me like a cartoon rabbit that they had their own architecture department. And I don't know whether they, thought that they were going to go into the speculative housing market, which is basically you build a house and then try to sell it. Or you fix up a house and try to sell it. They didn't fix houses up then. They didn't mean to. They just put new houses in. So I tripped on the fact that they had an architecture department, which was run by Christopher Myers, architect. Christopher Myers worked in worked for Scientific America for 25 years, and then after the magazine was closed, that part of the magazine was closed, he moved his practice to Montclair, and he lived in Montclair. He also had an office during this time on Midland Avenue. Later, he had an office at 460 Bloomfield Avenue, which you will see in a minute, and you'll know that building. And I love it says no charge for sketching, supervision taken, charge is moderate. And I was looking at a lot of the newspapers, and on the Saturday nights, they would publish a little snippet of some building that Christopher was working on. His office, he ended up having his office in the Crane Building on Bloomfield Avenue. Now, this is the list of the houses that we're going to hopefully get through. I'm not sure that we're going to get through all of them, but these are ones that he had direct contact with. And another thing about Christopher Myers, I have not been able to find out if he has a degree in architecture. There weren't that many architecture schools when he would have gone to school. Most people at that time were self-taught, or they were an apprentice for somebody. And I'm still digging, trying to find out what his deal was. But just so you know that you can't say you're an architect unless you have the education. And New Jersey didn't even license architects until 1905, and New York was later. Christopher Myers was born in Belleville and grew up in Montclair. And he started out as I have one listing in the census where he's still living with his folks and he's a carpenter. Then there's a big gap because we lose some of the information in the late 1800s. But then all of a sudden he pops up as an architect. So someday I will know more about Mr. Christopher Myers. Sorry. I'm assuming that all the projects that were listed as Munn and Company architects were directed by Christopher Myers. And this is the group of houses that either were listed as his primarily, or if they have a double star, then that's from the architectural design department of Munn and Company. So let's see how many of these we can get through without me rambling off. The first one is George A. Miller Jr. I have information on his father, who he was a colonel in the New York, National Guard. But I don't have much information about what George A. Miller Jr. was, but I think that they were an attorney family. Their house was on Claremont Avenue, and it's kind of adorable. I said a Victorian cottage, but Victorian is supposedly not even a term or a style, but we're going to call it that. In fact, most of the styles that I've labeled on these drawings are more than likely not necessarily the true version of it. They're just an adjective to describe what maybe one or two of the features of the house are. Most of these houses are almost like, pick, oh, I saw this house down the street and it has this feature, so let's put it on there, which just happens now too. So there's all different kinds of features, but there's a general thread running through Christopher Meyer's work. And one of the things that he really liked was angled walls, chamfered walls, and you're going to see some sort of feature in that almost every one of his projects, especially in the dining room. There's different treatments that they used, and there's, we'll see the evolution of bathrooms and back stairs and all different kinds of things. Most of the time, there were the rooms in the parlor and the dining room had big double doors, double pocket doors, so that you could, I don't know, walk through and stroll into the dining room after having dinner or having a chat in the parlor, but they that's another feature in his houses. They're also, if you look at the bathroom on the second floor, you'll notice there's no toilet. Most of these houses still had a privy in the outside. And it's listed in a lot of the building in the specifications of the buildings, which we'll see in the next couple of slides. The other thing was the covered porch was called a piazza. And that's just straight, it's another word for a veranda or a covered roof. And so you can see that this house was built in 1886 for $4,500. And it's funny, they say in the magazine, it's a low sum for a house of this kind, of this class of structure. So what I did was I looked up the straight up inflation dollars. Well, we know that that's not enough to build a house in Montclair. So I made a guesstimate, and I used a multiplier of 1,500% to get to 750. And I still don't think that that's even high enough. Having priced out a couple of buildings in Montclair just for renovations. So these people must have had a little bit of money if this is what they had, if this is what it cost at that time. Now, how's the building changed? And if you drive down Claremont, you can see this house. Now, it seems to me that it was expanded on both sides because the porch roof has part of my picture is blocked, because you can see that this porch roof has extended all the way across, and we've lost this adorable little gable entry roof. There's also a porte cochere on the left, which may be there, but we can't tell from the um, rendering. A large part of the details on this house have been maintained, which is really nice. A lot of the spindle work and whatnot. Um, and The only other thing that I can see is that they've taken off shutters in some places. But in general, this house has, stood the test of time. Now, the next house I want to share with you is a speculative house. And the reason that I really wanted to include this one is because it's kind of wacky looking. It's got a whole kitchen wing over here in this area. And the main house is all on one floor, which you rarely ever see in Montclair. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. This building was shown in the magazine as a house that you could buy the plans and the specifications, and Christopher Myers would be happy to come and help you build it. So not only did they have him be the head of the architecture department, they were having him do construction projects for them as well. So as they're not showing the kitchen wing, but it's still a nice little house with his trademark chamfered dining room, nice piazza, and then a connecting porch that would take you onto the kitchen wing. Another fun thing about this house is that they say that you could, if you wanted a second floor, you could move the bathroom and build a stair to the second floor, which I thought was a pretty clever way to show this house and try to sell it. In this particular instance, there is a very detailed, and I didn't want to put everything up because it would be really hard to see, but they outlined all the work that the contractor would need to be, all the work that they would need to do for the painter. This is the gas pipes portion of it. There's no mention of electricity, so I think this is just a strictly gas house, a gas lighted house. But there's, they go through absolutely everything. It's very interesting. If anybody wants to see the whole thing, I can always email you the whole page. And then they also had, they broke it all down as to price. And this was a $4,800 house. Down here on the summer, you can see how much they feel the house is going to be. And then they break it down. And I think this is 25 cents a piece for lumber. Now it's between $7 and $9 for a piece of lumber 8 feet long. So it's really interesting to see how the prices have gone up. The next, so we don't know if it ever got built, so I don't have a before and after picture for you. And this one is also one that we haven't been able to figure out if it was built in Montclair or not, but it's a cottage for $2,500, which in my guesstimate phase, it would be around $650,000. It also had a specification like the last one. but if you look at it, it's very interesting to see that they've used different kinds of materials to make it stand out more. These are, it's clapboard, and then they go to shingle detail, so that gives it a little bit more pizzazz, and then interesting architectural spindle work on the porches, or the piazzas, sorry. This one, he's kind of cheated on his 45-degree angle in the dining room. He's put closets and a fireplace in the corner, but he still has it chamfered off, so that I guess he liked, I guess that was one of his things that he liked to design. The parlor also has a bay window look, even though we don't have a bay. It's not really a bay. It's got an overhang above. They're always talking about that they have ample closet space, and I suppose it was ample at the time, but that would not fly in a 2021 house. I've had people come to me and want to make a bedroom into a closet. They'd rather sacrifice a bedroom and to get all that closet space. And also, I want to point out that there's always a third floor. You can see on these plans that there's another stair that's going up to an attic space, where they would either, if they had live-in servants, they would stay there, or there was a trunk room, all different kinds of things. Also, if you notice that this one also does not have a bathroom inside. There was a listing of a privy in the specifications, so we're still in that kind of setup. And I wonder, one day I'll do some looking into how the township handled those privies in the backyard, and how it was done. Now we're going to go to another house that you will probably know the corner. This is the Fred Drescher corner. Well, I call it the Fred Drescher corner because he at one time had 3 houses, and right now it's the corner house is being worked on. If you drive by, you'll notice that in the turret part of the house, the windows are gone. So I'm assuming that they're replacing the windows. Fred Drescher was a wholesale grocer in Hoboken. So I guess that was a good business to be in. And here is his little cottage. Again, he's treated it, they've stained the clapboard or shingles, no, it's shingles on the main body of the house, and then changed to another color and had decorative shingles above. It said that it was the construction cost in 1889 was $5,500, and the guesstimate for the price is now $825,000. This house has a bay window in the library, and then goes up to the second floor. So this is a true bay because it's engaged with the ground. That's what a true bay window is. If it's just a bay window that doesn't go to the ground, it's called an oriel window. Just for people that want to know that kind of stuff. We've finally moved the water closet into the inside, which is a great thing. There are hardly any closets in this place on the bedroom side, and they've also showed where the bed could go. The parlor now is removed from the dining room. The kitchen in this area here, this big chimney area, this is where you would have your range and your sink, and then this tub, which is probably where you would wash your clothes. There are larger this is probably a china closet, and the library is looking out at a, you know, a lovely piazza. A lot of times also they included a sheet of details which shows some of the more interesting features of the house, like the newel post and the posts that would go on the outside of the building for the porch. Well, unfortunately, I can't show you the building as it stands because it's now a parking lot. But, you know, I guess time marches on. This next interesting house, let me catch up with everybody, is the house of John Mcnaughton. He owned all this piece of property, and he was a retail merchant. And it's located within walking distance of the Walnut Street station. So if he needed to go do his thing out of town, he could just walk right down there. This is to me, he's transforming into more larger, more elegant buildings. So like in the beginning, the first 5 years, people were still having cottages and little houses. Now the houses seem to be becoming more elaborate and larger because people are moving their families out here. It also, this is another thing that he started to do around this time. He's got an unusual hexagonal tower here in back. Usually the towers were, you know, you see them around town. They were round, but he seemed to like the either hexagonal ones or octagonal ones. This one has a really cool sunburst detail on the third floor at the eaves. So that was really it's a handsome house. You can also see on this floor, he's actually given. I guess I'm fixated on closets, but it always makes me kind of laugh when I see the little dinky closets. And when I go in to renovate a house, the closets all have hooks on them because evidently they just had to, instead of hanging your clothes, you just hung your 3 dresses on hooks. This house doesn't have fireplaces in every room on the top floor, which to me is showing that it's got some sort of furnace in the cellar, which is either steam, which would lead to radiators, or there were also hot air, forced air in some of these houses. They wanted to point out that there's a separate staircase in the back, so that, you know, if the kitchen people needed to go to the cellar and get whatever they needed out of the cellar, or go up to their part of the house, that they could do it without disturbing the family. This house has a bigger chimney. This is the chimney. This is the old-fashioned way you would vent your stove. You didn't have a hood. you had a stove, a range pushed into this alcove, and it vented up through its own stack up to the roof. Here you see the wash tubs and the sink over at this area. Again, they are showing details of the, some of the special details that they put into the house. And these are really, really helpful now, if you can find them, to restore different parts to a house that, to a house that I might be working on, or if people would like to restore it back to its former glory. Unfortunately, this house is gone too. And I'm not sure, maybe the people who grew up here can tell me later whether this house was there. I know that I've seen the house that was there before they tore it down and put these these are actually lovely houses that were put in now in the last couple of years. They're great in scale and the way that they treated things, but they're not the house with all the doodads on it. So I'd like to know if anybody has a picture of the house that was there 10 years ago, because it would be interesting to see the transition. Now, the thing with Mr. Myers is that his name was spelled wrong a lot. This house is this is where Christopher Myers lived for most of his life and raised his family. He lived here. He's listed here. Sometimes they have it as 124. Sometimes it's 126 in the city directories, but I know it's him. He lived here approximately from 1890 to 1916, when he moved in with his son on Walnut Street, and his daughter lived on James Street. And it seems that he was married to a woman named Emma Jean and had 3 sons and 1 daughter. This is another one. I don't understand why they painted the tree in front of it. It's too bad, because you can't really see the top of the house. Now, I've shown this house in previous talks, but when I found out it was his house, I thought it would be good to include it as well. It's a modest house for $2,800 in 1890, because we all know that architects don't make a ton of money. And the guesstimate construction price for now, at 1,500% inflation, not inflation, but guesstimate, would be $420,000. And I know that this house could not be built for $420,000. This house was a lot more modest than a lot of his other houses. So all the bedrooms connect together, which I don't understand why you'd want that, but evidently that's what he wanted. In a lot of the rooms, there's no closet at all. And then otherwise they have these very tiny, narrow closets. So maybe the whole family uses the same closet back here in the corner. Off the piazza was a generous entry hall where you would greet your visitors. The parlor was connected to the dining room. He didn't make it so it had chamfered corners. Chamfered means just like something like this, more decorative. In his kitchen, Um, and pantry is, there's no butler's pantry in this house. It's just a very practical, straight up house. Again, it doesn't show that there's a bathroom. Maybe there was, maybe they had something in the cellar. But I do know there was a privy in back. So that's my next thing that I'm going to have to find. Um, Again, some nice details of the woodworking. I especially like the spindles on the stairway. Those are very cool. I've shown this house before, and the last time that I showed it, it was still under construction. It really kind of made me crazy. But this top picture is from several years ago, where you can see that it's still got a lot of the same features left on it than it does now. Now they've added from here over as an addition and just made it big flat elevation with nothing interesting on that side. So our little bay window, our little roundish bay window has been eliminated, which is too bad. But they went back. This one, the porch was enclosed. Now they've given us back a nice piazza. I think a lot of people know about the LA Wright house that's across the street from this house. It's the one that we featured in the fall harvest home tours. It was designed by Mcnaughton White, but I'm saving that one for a possible next lecture if everybody's still interested in all of this after I ramble on. But across the street from him, William C. Whiting, who was a commercial merchant and dealt with dry goods, he owned both of these pieces of property. And I believe this house was put on, was situated on the long side with the short side facing the street. They're calling this now, and I looked it up because to me they're saying that this is colonial, and to me it looks like Queen Anne colonial. I like to call it Montclair eclectic, where there's just a lot of things going on. Queen Anne is sort of a catch-all for if you don't know what it is, then you put that into it, but it usually has a turret, which this house does. It also, to me, looks a little more plantation-like, and if you look on the front porch, they look like Southern ladies getting ready to get some sweet tea. But what's really cool about this house is the turret that they have, and then there's these very kind of odd little decorations at the top of these two dormers, which I don't quite get, but that was, I'm sure, the wish of either Christopher Myers cooked it up, or the owner saw a house that they liked that had it, and so they added it on. It also has these lovely railings, which actually add a lot to the house. With this house, he's moved a little bit away from his hexagonal room design, threw in a bunch of half circles, which makes, gives a little bit more of an interesting look. Also, if you know, well, I mean, of course you noticed, but they've stopped making those lovely color renderings, and they're doing photographs now with this this, with kind of a deco background or Victorian style background. Um, I don't think it's as lovely as the other ones, but I didn't have the choice. I wasn't working there, so here the um, the plans show, you know, the parlor going directly into the dining room. It's it's your basic setup. Um, Butler's pantry leading into the dining room. There's a porch on either side. You can go right outside from the kitchen, or you can even go out to the porch from the dining room. We have another thing that I love in these buildings are these that the water closet is in its separate little uh, compartment from the bathroom. So if they're in here taking, well, why. But it's I think that's a great addition. Again, we are, in this house, he's given them a little bit more closet space, but it's still pretty tight. And then I'm sure that there's a fully tricked out top floor. Another thing that I thought was amusing about this is in the next issue, there was an error because Scientific American didn't put the right price down. They wanted everybody to know that the house was $2,000 more expensive than it was than they showed beforehand. This is the house now. I didn't get a really recent picture of it because it looks like they're doing work on the exterior, painting and whatnot. But you can see from this one, there's a lot of things missing. We've lost our railings on this floor. We still have the little windows. All the shutters are gone. We've lost those funny little deals on top of the dormers. It seems like there was even maybe some other details that they've left off too. I can't show you the front because it's blocked, but it's what happened is all this woodwork probably over the years became rotted, and then when they went to price it up to put it back, it might have been out of whoever had the house next budget. But it would be really neat if they could put on the second and third floor of these railings back. Oh, this is also another wacky thing, is that they've totally changed out the kind of window that's right here on this dormer. Next, we have 87 Park Street. Mr. Frank Siret. He was a salesman in New York City. And we've moved into the Sirius turret design. It's a strange, this tower doesn't have the typical pointed hat on top of it that you would see normally. They would go up to to the top floor, and then I guess there was a way to get out here and get your telescope and look at what's going outside. I guess we came up with it. It's a modified four square colonial style but there's some different features, like there's a little nod to the Dutch colonial, but not where they have sort of a barn shape, but it's only up at the top of the gable on both of these. It's a lovely, railings everywhere. And there's also, you can see with these, there's the flared eaves down here at the bottom. This one was, of course, it was a 5,500 in 1893. And my guesstimate says 825 now. But if you see, there's all these little cute, these little oval windows. There's a lot of details in this house. There are a lot of things that are makes this house especially special. It says that the library is octagonal in shape and well lighted. Parlor and dining room are separated by double sliding doors, and each are provided with open fireplaces furnished with tiled hearths and facings and hardwood mantels. And it also talks about the staircase having stained glass windows up on the top, at the top of the windows, or maybe even on this is that tall window that's on the side. It would be really nice to know if those windows still exist, but hold on to your hat. This building has changed. And this is also an interesting where these are connected and you could maybe use the same closets. The closets seem to be shrinking. The bathrooms are now inside with a little, the WC compartment and an octagonal library. This is our house now. Somehow we lost the third floor of the tower. We lost a lot of the little extra, we've got two windows. Instead, if we've got two windows in the new, replacing the one window and the decorative windows on the side. It also seems to have gained a turret in the back. It's an office building now. And see, here's the stained glass windows. It's an office building now, and I'd be curious to go inside and see what's left on the inside. How's everybody doing? Need a break? No. Oh, I think we've hit our hour, and I'm not even halfway. You need to unmute.
Maybe what we do is we hold some of these. You're really only halfway there?
I'm only up to Plymouth. I guess I talk too much.
So why don't we plan to do part 2 of this in the fall then, and you can just pick up from there.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Sorry.
There were some questions. There were some questions here.
Okay.
So I'd like to address a couple of them. Somebody actually, who was it? George. I think, George, you could unmute yourself. You were asking about the forced hot air.
Yeah, maybe I missed it, but I thought you said that one of the 1889 buildings had forced air.
It might have. I have another slide way down. Hold on. Don't look, because these are getting. Oh. There were the Bundy standard corner radiators. They either had steam radiators, or I don't have a picture of it, but the Bundy forced air radiators. So, I mean, they would have grates in the floor, but I don't have enough information on that.
But that would have required fans, and that would have been a new technology.
Well, not necessarily. I'm not sure. It may have been just it just kind of went up through the house. Like in a lot of houses, you would see those open grates that would be open to the people down. That's how we used, when we were kids, we used to listen to what the adults were doing downstairs. So that's something else I'd like to look a little bit more into. There's just so many things that you can lose yourself in. And evidently I lost myself too much because I only got halfway through.
So we have a definite, please do part 2 because this has been really interesting. Focus also, somebody says, address the kitchens and baths and privies. Was there legislation out for them? So that's something we could look into.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
Carol, you mentioned that on, I think it was back at 99 Claremont, somebody was asking about the 3rd floor. And you, I think, had mentioned that there was a real lack of windows on one side. And one of the things that I've learned is that with some of that's one of the reasons you'd put stained glass windows in, because now people are getting closer and closer. And so stained glass windows were a good way to have privacy without blocking off all of your light entirely. And it's funny because I live in a house that's very close to 2 other neighbors, and we have stained glass windows in those places where we're very close to other people. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's also a sign of wealth.
And
67 Park. I mean, to have a stained glass window that large,
right.
I think you got some bucks.
And I think the other question that came up was somebody asked about the library rooms, and were they really intended for people to shelve and read books? And yes, that was, but it was also also it too was a sign of wealth, and learning. You wanted to have good books in your library. Whether or not you read them was a whole different issue. And Justin added in that forced air heating was invented in 1935.
Interesting, because that's I'll have to go back to my.
And then George actually counters that and says the article says they were forced air in the 18th century powered by steam engines.
I just, I will clarify that before the next one.
There you go. That sounds great.
That's
all right.
That was, but I was surprised at, since we're so close to Thomas Edison, why weren't there more houses with electricity?
Right. Or both. Right. All right, everybody. We will put up, I'm going to, after we get off this phone call, I'm going to ask Debra when she'd like to do part 2 in the fall. And we'll have all of our programs coming up on the website within the next few weeks. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye.